Today is the day where we can lift the lid, to a degree, on the latest RTX Super Series cards. Now you'll probably notice that we're not in Vegas at CES, but instead made a decision to stay back at the office because January is shaping up to be a pretty big month for GPU launches, including the RTX 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super and 4080 Super. So we thought we'd have a quick look at some of the cards themselves to see what it's all about. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor.
I'm never going to be an esports gamer. I never get any kills.
I wouldn't be so sure of that.
Is that Andy Raffel from eTeknix.com?
Yes, my son. It is me, Andy Raffel from eTeknix.com.
What are you doing here?
I'm here to bestow upon you a gift that will transform you into a true gamer. With a 24.5-inch Full HD screen, 240Hz refresh rate, 0.5 millisecond response time, AMD FreeSync Premium, and height adjustability, you'll be gaming in the big leagues in no time.
Oh, thank you.
No problem, my son. Why don't you check out the link in the description below to find out more.
So to give you an idea as to what this month has come in, I think I can be as bold to say there are super cards coming in 3 variants, as well as something from AMD this month. But without breaking NDAs, I think that's about as far as I can kind of really take things. Now, by the time this video comes out, you probably would have already seen the announcement from Nvidia in regards to the cards and what they've got to offer. Now, first things first, the launches are staggered, with the 4070 Super coming first on the 16th of January for MSRP based card reviews, and non-MSRP cards coming the day after, which is also when they'll go on sale. Now for the 4070 Ti Super, the MSRP reviews will come on the 23rd of January, and again the non-MSRP reviews and official sales release the day after. While the 4080 Super will see MSRP reviews going live on the 30th of January, and again, the non-MSRP cards and sales release on the 31st. Now, due to the timescales, the 4070 Ti Super and 4080 Super cards haven't actually arrived with us yet, while the 4070 Supers, as you can see, have already started to trickle through. So due to the fact that we have them in our hands already, we can essentially go through everything to do with MSRP cards without delving into the performance, because sadly, you're going to have to wait a little longer to see that. So with that in mind, we thought it'd be nice to go through what we have here today and I guess give you an idea into the looks and how things are shaping up. Now, for transparency, when it comes to what we actually have here today, we have both the NVIDIA Founders Edition card, as well as an Inno3D Twin X2 card, along with a Palit MSRP card that's en route, while non-MSRP wise, we do actually have an Asus Tough Gaming OC here that I can't talk about and can't really show you, as well as a Gigabyte Gaming OC come in, which, like the Palit card, is en route. So instead of talking about what we don't have, let's focus on the Founders and the Twin X2 cards that we have here today, because you're actually in for a pretty nice surprise. Firstly though, what's new? Well, what's the Super even all about? Well, with Nvidia going all in when it comes to ray tracing and AI upscaling, the 4070 Super packs 20% more cores than the RTX 4070, which means that it comes in faster than an RTX 3090, all while it's said to use a lot less power. Along with features that are specific to the 40 series, we also get DLSS 3 with frame generation, and you now actually get an extra boost beyond that, all while remaining power efficient in comparison to the previous generation. So it seems from a first glance that Nvidia are focusing on tightening things up in terms of power delivery, while also pushing AI functionality such as DLSS with frame generation and ray reconstruction. And after having a call with Tim Green, this was the message that they were really trying to hammer on home. So let's talk about the 4070 Super specs, because it uses the AD104 GPU, though in a slightly different variant than the 4070, which uses the AD104 250A1 chip, and the 4070 Ti that uses the AD104 400A1 chip. And if you hadn't already guessed, this actually sits right between them, with the AD104 350A1 chip. Now, as mentioned, it's seen over a 20% increase in cores, with 7,168 CUDA cores compared to 5,888 on the non-super model. It's also seen the same jump in texture mapping units, now at 224, and has seen a healthier 25% improvement in ROPS, now at 80, which matches the 4070 Ti. Now in terms of Tensor cores and RT cores, that's in the same 22% increase, now giving us 224 and 56 respectively, and are still the same 4th and 3rd generation, so kind of no real huge change, other than the amount of them. which I guess should help propel performance in terms of ray tracing and DLSS, which as mentioned really seems to be the big precursor for the launch of the supercards. Now, memory size, speed, bandwidth, bus, and even transistor count all stays completely the same, with the only difference coming by way of the clock speeds, which have seen, I guess, a small jump over the non-super version. Now, a reference 4070 Super will come in with a base clock of 1920 MHz, a boost clock of 2475 MHz, and a memory clock of 1313 MHz, or 21 gigabit per second effective. So let's talk about the designs though, because that's where things kind of change. Now, when the FE arrived, we had no clue as to if Nvidia were even doing an FE for the 4070 Super, as they didn't exactly give much away, likely due to avoiding leaks, which actually worked because we were as much in the dark as you were. Now, when it arrived, we instantly took it out of its box to see what we were dealing with, and to start getting B-roll footage for video, and of course pictures for eTeknix.com. And that's when everyone in the office looked at each other and collectively said, wow. The Founders cards are, I guess, highly regarded as some of the most gorgeous looking GPUs on the planet, with a clean, professional, and almost industrious look that I guess keeps the whole card looking clean with no visible screws, and a unique twin fan design that incorporates one fan on the front and one on the rear. And while Nvidia do shake things up a bit in terms of colour for certain models, they are mostly left the same across the 40 series, with the only difference coming from the size of the card itself. Now, the 4070 Super, however, takes that mentality and just goes a little bit further with a completely new colour theme. The majority of the cards are, I guess what you could say as a greyy gunmetal colour, while the 4060 Ti went slightly lighter with a more silvery look, whereas the 4070 Super, however, goes almost black in a stealthy kind of way in, well, every way possible. The metal shroud around the card is very dark, almost kind of a black colour, while the plastic panels also now have a slightly different texture to them, which in a way makes them look darker. And then the 4070 Super logo has also had a facelift, as gone is the silver branding and instead a more stealthy look in a debossed fashion, while the Super logo is slightly raised and kind of shimmers as the light hits it. Other than that, the only, I guess, other visual change is the exoskeletal frame that divides up the sections, which again has gone slightly darker to really make this card look as stealthy as possible. The reasons behind it? I don't know, Nvidia didn't really make that clear, but I guess they just want to separate how things look from the non-super cards. Now, in terms of physical hardware, it's still a 2-slot card, still has a 12V PWR power connector, and still has 3 DisplayPort connectors and a single HDMI. So I guess a pretty good looking card overall, but not the only card that we actually have here today. The other MSRP card that we have, as the Palit card hasn't arrived yet, is the Inno3D Twin X2, which seems to use the same cooler that they used on the RTX 4060 and 4070. But I guess if it's not broke, why fix it? As we've always found the Twin X2 cooler to be more than up for the task. They typically do a white version too, so I wouldn't be surprised if that comes for the 4070 Super as well. But in terms of style, it's quite industrious, with the split design that's separated between a black plastic panel and brushed metal looking panel that's held in by 5 Torx screws, though this is still plastic. But from a distance, it has a metal look to it, so I don't think you'd really notice or mind too much. Much like the Founders, it will take up 2 slots in your case and has 2 large fans on the front with some simple Inno3D branding. The heatsink is split into 3 sections with heat pipes connecting them and making direct contact with the various components of the card, and also spans the whole length of the PCB for the very best cooling performance. Naturally, there's a full-length metal backplate at the rear with cutouts to expel air and some simple Inno3D branding for when you're running the card horizontally. Beyond that, that's about it. There's no RGB on the card, and instead it lends itself to more of a, I guess, professional look, which I personally think it kind of adds a premium-esque look to the card as a whole. And of course, it also allows Inno3D to hit that MSRP price by keeping unnecessary costs down, like RGB. Now, power-wise, the card has a 12V PWR connector as expected, along with 3 DisplayPort connectors and a single HDMI, much like the Founders card. Before we move on, while filming, the Palit dual card arrived, so we may as well give it some screen time. Much like the Founders and the Inno, this card uses the 12V PWR connector as you'd expect, and features 3 DisplayPorts with just 1 HDMI, and again is a dual slot design. Now, in terms of looks, Palit has really gone for a simplistic design. Nothing more than a black plastic shroud that features some textured areas and some glossy parts to give the card a more, I guess, gamery look. Around the back is a very simple plastic backplate that, whilst it doesn't offer anything to help with thermal performance, is certainly better than no backplate at all. The card features a dual fan design, hence the name, blowing onto a heatsink that's split into 3 sections. And honestly, between this and the Inno, the choice really does come down to your personal preference, especially as they come in at the same MSRP price. Now, in terms of pricing, these are both MSRP cards, and therefore they're going to come in at $599 USD, which is actually the same price as what the RTX 4070 non-Super launched for. Now, to mention the other models, the 4070 Ti Super is launching for $799, which again is the same price as the non-Super, but the 4080 Super is the big one, as that's launching for $999, which is actually $200 cheaper than the current 4080 non-Super, which is definitely a step in the right direction, especially after a lot of comments over the last couple of years about pricing from Nvidia, and especially if performance is increased. Though I think it's safe to say, and something Nvidia mentioned on our call, that anyone on a 40 series wouldn't see much point in upgrading to a Super card, though I am going to disagree when it comes to the 4080 Super, obviously depending on the levels of increased performance, which is something we'll have to wait for. So yeah, that's about it really. As mentioned, we will have performance figures when the official NDA lifts, and based on the specs, yeah, I'm expecting performance to be, I guess on the 4070 Super, to be much closer to the 4070 Ti, which Nvidia also confirmed to us will see the non-Super cards phase out and become end of life, which really I think comes down to the fact that they just don't want too many cards that are so similar in performance, as it would just end up being so close to each other that I guess it muddies the stack a little too much. And that's going to wrap it up for this one. Hopefully it's given you an insight as to what's to come and has kind of given you a small taste as to what we can expect. If you enjoyed the video, then a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. And if you love what we do, then you can help support us over on our Patreon, where you'll get access to our full testing data, exclusive behind the scenes content, bi-weekly game nights, and it helps us kind of to keep bringing you the very best content. The link for all that great stuff is down below. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys.